Just like many other G1 Transformer fans, I absolutely love Bruticus. And not only do I love the combined robot, I also love the individual combiner team as well. And out of all the Combaticons, my favorite has always personally been Brawl. I know he really didn't get that much screen time in the original G1 series, but I always absolutely loved this character. So now that Magic Square finally got around to making their Bruticus and they made their Brawl, I was super happy to finally get him in my collection. So today I wanted to sit down and talk about this little awesome Brawl. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Speakerhead, and today we're going to be talking about Magic Square Brawl. But before we get into this video, if you guys enjoy any of this sort of content and want to see more of it, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help out my channel. Also, if you enjoy any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios. All the music on this label is completely royalty-free, so go ahead and use it for any of your content creating needs. Finally, if you want to be like any of the awesome people on screen right now and support the channel directly, you can become a channel member today. But now that we got all that out of the way, let's actually start talking about Magic Square Brawl. And of course, to start out, let's talk about his accessories. To start off, he comes with his signature blaster in a nice gray plastic. He also does come with some additional cannons for alt mode, which I will show off more later in the video. And finally, he does come with his foot piece for Bruticus. I will mention right now that I'm not going to be showing the actual transformation of how to put him in the foot mode, but I will be showing that if I make a full video on Bruticus. But with all of his accessories out of the way, let's actually start talking about this figure. And of course, let's talk about the sculpt of this guy. Now, just like many other Magic Square Transformer figures, they absolutely nailed the sculpt of this figure. It looks like he just ripped this guy straight out of the screen, and he just looks fantastic from all angles. We'll start off by showing a quick 360 of this guy so you guys can see the general overall sculpt of him. But now let's actually start looking at some of the fine details. For starters, for his head, they absolutely nailed that G1 sculpt. And the paint they use on the visor really just helps the head stand out from the rest of the figure. But quickly talking about the arms, I really do like the overall sculpt of the arms, even though they are very minimalistic. I also really do like the treads for the shoulder pads. I think that always just looks awesome for Brawl. And moving on to the chest, there definitely are a lot more details on here compared to the other parts of the body we already talked about. And those extra details really just helps the figure stand out even more. But then finally moving on to the waist and lower legs, this all looks fantastic. Once again, for the lower legs with all that extra detail for the alt mode, it all just looks fantastic. But when it comes to the overall sculpt of this guy, he does look amazing, like I said. And the fact that they were actually able to flatten out the chest compared to the G1 toy is really awesome as well. And for those who are curious, I'll quickly show up my comparison of my G1 Brawl compared to this Magic Square Brawl because, as MGO always says, he is precious. But moving on from the sculpt, let's actually talk about the paint job on this guy. And for those who know Magic Square figures, you guys know that Magic Square really doesn't add any sort of paint, at least on their first run of figures. And this guy is absolutely no exception to that. As far as I can tell, the only paint that's going to be on this guy is going to be on the face, and also a little bit of yellow on the lights for the alt mode. But other than that, there's going to be no sort of paint on this guy. It's all just going to be plain matte plastic. But that being said, the matte plastic does look fantastic. It always does look great for the Magic Square figures, but once again, there's not really going to be any sort of paint on this guy. And this is just a bit of a prediction, but I have a feeling that Magic Square is going to end up releasing a premium version of these guys in a full set, just like they did with Menasor. So if you do want a more premium painted version of this guy or the rest of the Combaticons, then I would definitely just wait on that, because I know they're definitely going to get around to that. But moving on from paint job, now let's talk about my favorite thing to talk about, and that's going to be the articulation of this guy. When it comes to the articulation of Magic Square Brawl, I was honestly fairly surprised with how good of articulation he has. When it comes to the limb bots for combiner teams, I've just kind of seen, especially for the Legend scale, that they usually don't have the greatest articulation. I'm not saying the articulation of these figures are bad, but they're usually not as good as standalone figures. However, this guy definitely breaks the mold in this case because he has fantastic articulation. Starting with the head, it's on a ball joint on the back of the head so he can look all the way up, and then he can also look all the way left and right, no problem. Moving down to the shoulders now, the arms can go almost all the way out to the side. However, the shoulder pads do end up getting in the way, and then the arms are able to rotate all the way around, no problem. Moving on to the lower arms, they do have a bicep swivel, and then the elbows are able to bend slightly more than 90 degrees, which is great. Moving down to the waist, he does have a waist swivel that can go all the way around. Then he also has not just a forward ab crunch, but also a backwards ab crunch, which is amazing. So now moving down to the legs are able to go all the way out to the side, a surprising amount of movement forward, but sadly no sort of backwards movement, but that's totally fine with me. Moving on to the knee, it's on a double joint that's able to bend more than 90 degrees. And finally moving on to the feet, it doesn't have any sort of forward or backwards ankle tilt, but it does have a side tilt that's more than you'd ever need. So like I said, even though this guy is a limb bot, he does have amazing articulation. He would just be a fine figure just on his own. Now before we actually move on to the transformation, I do want to show a few different figures with this guy so you guys can get a general idea of how big he is. So the first comparison is going to be with a few other Magic Square figures. And the other comparison is going to be with a few New Age figures, so you guys got a general idea for both those companies. But with those comparisons out of the way, let's actually start talking about the transformation for this Brawl. When it comes to transformation of this Brawl, he's a pretty fun figure to transform. However, he does have a lot more steps compared to your average Legend scale figure. Just like many other recent Magic Square figures, there's just a lot of panels that need to be flipped out and actually tabbed in, which is a little frustrating, but it's not terrible. At least compared to other Magic Square figures, I'd say his transformation is somewhere in the middle from being really annoying and complicated to very simple and simplistic. Because there's definitely a lot of steps that actually go into transforming this guy, but he's definitely not something that you're not going to be able to do on a frequent basis. Plus, after you learn transforming it a few times, it gets much easier, like it has been with me. So even though he does have a lot of panels that need to be flipped around, he does transform fairly easily, and he does come out to a fantastic looking alt mode. But now that we're done with transformation, let's actually talk about the alt mode for this guy. And just like the robot mode, Magic Square absolutely nailed the look of this alt mode. I love all the little details they added on the top of the tank, it just looks amazing. Plus the little lights on top just add a nice little touch to it as well, which is very nice. But then quickly talking about the turret, it's able to rotate all the way around, which is fantastic. And then the cannon is also able to move up and down. I'll also mention that there is a port on the top of the turret that you are able to actually plug his gun into, which is fantastic for weapon storage. And this also works in robot mode as well. And then finally, you're able to take that cannon accessory that I talked about earlier, and you're able to plug it into the back of the tank mode. And with all of his cannons on, this guy just looks like something you do not want to mess with. He just looks fantastic. It's also just a great homage to the original G1 toy and cartoon, which is awesome. I also do love the treads on the alt mode, but I wish they were painted in a gunmetal because I think that would just look a little bit better. But like I said before, Magic Square absolutely nailed the sculpt of this alt mode. And because he's going to be in this mode for Bruticus, I'm really happy that it looks good because that's how you're probably most likely going to be seeing him. But now that we're done talking about alt mode, let's actually talk about my final thoughts for this little Legend Scale Brawl. When it comes to Magic Square Brawl, as I stated multiple times throughout this video, this guy is just a fantastic figure in every way. Just like other Magic Square figures, he is lacking in the paint department, however, he does make up for it in many other ways. For starters, like I said, I think both the robot mode and the alt mode just look amazing. I think the sculpts for both of them are just fantastic and very on point. Along with the sculpt, articulation on this guy is fantastic, especially for a Limbot, because like I said, usually the articulation on those guys specifically aren't the greatest since they're only going to be in a little Limbot form. However, this guy's articulation is fantastic, and I'd honestly say it's better than a lot of other standalone Legend Scale figures, which is pretty crazy in my opinion. But overall, this guy is a really fantastic figure, and whether you're getting him for Bruticus or you're just getting him for a standalone figure, I highly recommend picking this guy up because he is just a super fun figure. I don't have all the components for Bruticus yet, so I just have him as a standalone figure, and the more I mess around with this guy, the more I really don't want to actually combine him into Bruticus because he's just really that fun. The one very last thing that I want to mention, and this isn't really anything good or bad, I just wanted to mention it somewhere in the video, but Magic Square's Combaticons are actually a little bit bigger than what I was expecting them to be. Their Combaticons aren't massive or anything, but at least compared to their Stunticons they've already released, they actually are slightly larger. Once again, not really a good or bad thing, I just wanted to throw this somewhere in the video because it was something I did notice when I was checking these guys out compared to my Stunticons. But once again, I highly recommend picking this Brawl up because I'm super satisfied with him and I know you guys will be as well. But guys, that's going to be all my thoughts on Magic Square Brawl. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you already have this guy, any of the other combat icons, or if you plan on even picking them up. But if you guys enjoyed this content and want to see more of it, make sure to like, subscribe. It really does help out my channel. Also, once again, if you enjoyed any of the music in this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my royalty-free music label, Speakerhead Studios. Link in the description. But if you guys are interested in checking out any other Magic Square figures, I do have a small playlist of all my other Magic Square reviews, so definitely feel free to check that out. But other than that, that's going to be it for me, guys, so I appreciate you checking out this video, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.